Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's now 6 p.m. and the April 7th, 2025 City Council meeting will come to order. This evening's invocation is presented by Councilmember Lloyd Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Father, we come to you this evening and we ask for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us, Father, to engage in meaningful discussion and help us all, Father, to grow closer to our community. Father, may all our decisions be righteous in your sight for our benefit and your glory. Father, please be with our law enforcement and all our first responders and keep them safe from harm as they serve and protect our city. Father, our citizens, our staff, our mayor, and our council members are often tasked with making decisions for our wonderful city. And Father, you have blessed us with free will to make our decisions. I pray that we all remember that our important decisions always seem to work out best when we go to you first, Father, to pray for direction. And thank you for our beautiful city, Father. We know that many of our citizens suffered through the storms and many are still dealing with hardships. But Father, we are still so often reminded of what a beautiful artist you truly are. Continue, Father, to remind us that all that we do here this evening, all that we may accomplish, is for the pursuit for truth of the greater glory of you, Father. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right, now rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Renee, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Bankert.
Present.
Councilmember Kim Shaw Elliott.
Present.
Councilmember Todd Harper.
Present.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Councilmember Anders Wellings.
Present.
Vice Mayor Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
City Manager Kyle Riefler.
Here.
And City Attorney Randy Mora.
Present. All right, thank you, Renee. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion. Motion is made by Frank Baker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Elliott. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. All right, next up is citizen comments. Any citizen would like to address the council about a topic not already on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. We ask that you limit your time to no more than 3 minutes and remember to direct all questions and comments to the council. Would any citizen like to address the council about a topic not already on tonight's agenda? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you. Tammy Lavenda. I'm the chair of the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation, and I am very happy to be up here to give you a couple of announcements.
Ms. Melinda, for the record, would you please give us your address?
Oh, sure. 97 Harbor Drive.
Thank you.
Sure. So, first of all, Wendy, Nicole, and I would like to welcome Tony and Peggy Gatliff to our board. We're very happy to have them and look forward to working with them. They'll be a great addition to our board. First and foremost, if you've noticed driving down the road, we've made, as a group effort, lots of improvements to the Veterans Memorial. So we were able to set a date for the ribbon cutting for June 21st. It'll be at 9 a.m. It'll be a ribbon cutting ceremony at the park for approximately 30 minutes, and then we will come back here for a reception. And then as far as the Veterans Memorial bricks, so right now we are 3 brick orders short of our next cutoff. So if anybody is thinking of ordering, if you have a veteran in your family, if you'd like to thank veterans, it doesn't have to be a deceased veteran. If you're thinking about ordering a brick and you would like it in the park before the ribbon cutting, if you could please place the order as soon as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. Let's see. And then the only other thing I have is we have our Keep Pinellas Beautiful Bridge cleanup on April 19th, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. And it is, we meet here at City Hall, and it's from 9 to 11 if you're interested in joining us. And I think that's it for now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Would any other citizens like to speak? All right, citizen comments are now closed. Next, we have presentations from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, beginning with a monthly law enforcement report.
Good evening, everybody. Sergeant Bly with the Sheriff's Office. I'm the B shift supervisor for the city of Bellevue Beach. Looking at the stats, I see from January to February we went down. So January had a couple of assaults and a motor vehicle theft. We didn't have any of that in February. We had one misdemeanor possession of controlled substance arrest, one traffic felony, and a couple of traffic misdemeanors in there in total. So most of our patrols throughout the city consist of directed patrols. We had 110 of those, 105 traffic stops being the next highest, and then we dropped down to 50 ordinance violations and a bunch of contacts and house checks. The rest of the crime stats are pretty low. We had 2 traffic crashes, one at 123 12th Street and one at 3500 Gulf Boulevard. And that's your stats, monthly stats for February. Does anybody have any questions in reference to those?
Council? Any questions? Thank you very much, Sergeant. I appreciate it. We do have
I'm
one
sorry.
question, sir. Sorry about that.
Just wanted to see, did we have any update on, with any details on the wreck that occurred about 19th Street, took out a median in the palm tree recently?
That was that in January?
Saturday.
Oh, Friday. Was it past Friday? Okay. I can get back to you on that.
Okay.
Let me do some. I'll sit back down and do some research on it, and I'll let you know. How's that sound?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks again. All right, now we're on to the monthly code enforcement report. Welcome back.
Good evening. How is everyone? I'm Deputy Richard Trump, Dallas County Sheriff's Office, and I am your code enforcement officer for the city of Bellevue Beach. Over the month, I had 50 entries. 11 cases are open, pending still. And I will tell you right off the bat right now, one of the biggest things that I've been trying to work on is we're trying to get the city back in shape and get everybody kind of back into the mode of let's get the grasses cut, let's get everything trimmed, let's get everything cleaned up and everything else. So you'll see in the entries and everything else, that's the majority of the entries. So between that, I had 33 entries that had to do with high grass and weeds in total. We had a couple of short-term rental investigations. Complaints of people called in that they thought the 2 different residences were short-term rentals. I investigated both of those. Neither one were in violation. One had a 90-day contract, and the other one was, for some reason, the family was living there, so we have no idea why they called in, other than cars being in the driveway and stuff like that. They had construction going on at the house, so there was a bunch of cars coming and going, and we think that's what the issue was, that they thought that might be a rental. But neither one was in violation. Other than that, I had just basically 2 complaints of trailers in their driveways. Both of those had been corrected after we did a 5-day notice on one of them. It finally left and was put away, and the other one I made contact with the residents, and basically it was just a small trailer out front, and they said no problem, we'll put it back in the garage. So that was taken care of there. You might see on the stats, one is listed as a dangerous structure. It actually was a sunken vessel, actually a jet ski back behind the house. I actually went out with the Marine unit on my next day off from the city and assisted them, and we tagged it as a derelict vessel. I believe it has since been removed because they were finally able to get a hold of it. It was referred to the Marine unit. Marine unit did some research. They were finally able to find the owner, and she had a service come out or was going to have a service come out and get it privately towed out of there. So that should be, if it hasn't been taken care of already, it should be taken care of pretty soon. I did 1 traffic stop, a couple of complaints of parking in the grass, which we've taken care of those, and just some other enforcements which had to do with a complaint of an open door behind the house. And I did a courtesy transport and one construction nuisance, which is pretty much a torn up yard. They started to do a sprinkler system and everything else, but got pretty much to tearing it up, and that's as far as they got. So piles of dirt and everything else. So we're getting that one handled though, and the residents have been notified, and we're taking care of that one. Other than that, with the weather being kind of very windy and sometimes rainy, I've only been able to get out on the beach on the ATV 3 times. So I'm hoping to get out there a little bit more as we progress into this spring and summertime, so that we can make sure everybody's happy out there on the beach and doing what they're supposed to be. Any questions for me?
Council? Yes, sir.
Officer Trump, I'd like to understand, when you talk about going out to the beach, are you talking about code enforcement or activity enforcement?
Both, a little bit of both. I mainly look for any type of code enforcement issues or anything else having to do with the ordinances out on the beach and everything else, but I'll handle just about anything out on the beach.
What is your experience with pets on the beach? I tend to see a lot of people walking dogs to the beach, yet I know the ordinance says that there are
No,
no pets.
there's not supposed to be any pets on the beach. Actually, last week, I did find one. They said that they didn't know the ordinance and didn't see the signs or anything else. They had a small chihuahua underneath the umbrella, so they immediately took the dog off. So, but I'm actively looking for that. So it's just unfortunately can't be there at every single second, but if I see it, yes, we'll take care of it.
And I should add for the deputies' benefit as well, one of the challenges with pets on the beach is the proliferation of the emotional support animal as a notion, because there is what the deputies or any officer can do. If somebody asserts that an animal is an emotional support animal, they can only ask 2 basic questions under the ADA. What is or is a support animal of some sort? What is the support that it provides? And I forget the one other question, and it's what does it provide, and is it licensed or whatever, and then that's it. And so oftentimes we can, especially in the current market, people can purchase a vest on, Amazon, put it on their dog that they love so much, and say that it's a support animal, and there's very little you can do to challenge that out in the field. And so I'm not saying that's what people are doing for all the pets you're seeing, but in other communities that has been a challenge on the beaches with pets on the beach. So, well, this is a service animal. So those are the 2 questions. Is this a service animal? If so, what function does it perform? And that's pretty much it. And so it creates a little bit of a challenge on the enforcement side and the ability to say, okay, if absent that, if it is not a service animal, absolutely violative of the ordinance, needs to be removed. But that is one challenge you'll see sometimes on the enforcement side for deputies.
I ask a
Yes,
follow-up.
thank you.
May I ask a follow-up? So from a service animal perspective, I understand the idea of emotional support and support animals, but my understanding is that service animals are specifically trained and or registered.
No.
So does a person with an emotional support animal provide that documentation?
No, there's no centralized registry for that or certifying agency. So the question is it a service animal? Yes, it is. What service does it provide? Well, it's a seeing eye dog, it's this, it's that, and that's the totality. There's not a centralized certification through the state or anything that you'll be provided an ID card that say, akin, for example, the medical marijuana registry with signature card. There's not a corollary like that.
Thank you.
I was under the belief that there's two different types that you're saying, service and emotional support. Emotional support has no right on the beach. And service, blind or something like that, is registered. I think it was the medical department in that. And it's a second-degree misdemeanor in Florida. If you pose your dog as a service animal, it's not, because there is a trail
Yes.
that you can check that out.
The service animals, yes.
Yeah, but I thought emotional support, because that was the airline big thing that got rid of it. Everyone was claiming their dog, their horse, their elephant was an emotional support animal and trying to get it on the plane. And I thought Florida got rid of emotional support. Because I talked to a person on the beach, and I said, that dog's not allowed on the beach, it's emotional support. And he said, well, go walk it on the street, But
I don't know the particular and the distinction, and I was perhaps a little imprecise in opening with emotional support. I meant to say service animal. That said, the particulars of that I defer to the deputies and the guidance they've been given from their from their agency, but I just wanted to add that as a quandary or an issue that can come up sometimes when you're enforcing those kinds of
I
things.
just wanted to do a big dog walk.
No question.
Yeah, but, I just see these people, and then they don't pick up after it really gets me upset.
Any other questions for Deputy Trump? No. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, we are now on to a presentation. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I asked a question
Oh,
for
you
you.
did find the report, okay.
I did, yes, sir. So it was a single vehicle crash, and it looks like the person had a medical episode. There was no signs of impairment. So the person does have insurance, so the city can go through insurance probably to get that median replaced. It didn't report. The actual ACES report has been approved, but the actual accident report has not yet been approved. So I give it a couple of days since it's only been a couple of days, and you guys should be able to follow with your insurance company.
Thanks again, Sergeant.
So it's just a single car accident?
Single car, yes, sir, in a medical episode.
A medical what, I'm sorry?
A medical episode?
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Yes, sir, no problem.
All right, now we are on to item 4, presentation from the Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District. Hello, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Wilfong. I serve as your intern district chief for Pinellas Suncoast Fire Rescue. I'm here tonight on behalf of Chief Ken Grimes. I'm pleased to share that Chief Grimes was recently appointed as the fire chief of PSFRD. He comes to us from Pinellas County Fire and EMS Administration, where he served as the EMS and Fire Operations Manager. Chief Grimes brings a wealth of experience in both public and private sectors, and we're excited about the leadership and expertise he brings to your district. Our emergency response activity during the month of March, PSFRD ran to 16 emergency calls within the city of Bel Air Beach. These include 10 medical emergencies and 6 fire-related incidents. For training, our personnel have completed a total of 732 hours of fire and all hazards training in March, ensuring our crews remain well prepared to protect and serve. Our new station for Indian Rocks Beach, we are under contract with the Church of the Isles to construct a new fire station on the western portion of their property. This will be our 4th station and will help us better meet the response times and serve communities in the northern part of our district, including Bel Air Beach. We are nearing the end of the due diligence phase and look forward to sharing more detailed updates soon. Station developments, we will soon break ground on the new Station 28 located in the Oakhurst community on the mainland. This facility will also serve as our permanent emergency operations center, enhancing our readiness for hurricanes and other large emergency incidents. Storm recovery efforts. As many of you continue with storm-related repairs, we too are working on restoring our headquarters at Station 27 in Indian Rocks Beach. Fortunately, we have been able to remain operational at that location throughout the process. In Indian Shores, our team has recently moved back into a newly renovated Station 26 after operating from a temporary site for several months due to the storm impacts. For rescue operations, we have currently taken delivery of our first transport-capable rescue unit. Once it's fully outfitted, it will begin episodic service while we develop a full plan for deployment, a plan for full-time deployment. I just want to thank you for your continued time and support. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Council, any questions? I only have one. So I know the date was sliding on the new fire hall or fire station. Estimated date that after groundbreaking, when do you think it will be open?
I have no idea. I can pass that on to Chief Grimes and he can get back to me on that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Everyone have a good evening.
You too. All right, now we are on to a presentation from Jeff Baker with Duke Energy and Mark Porter with Utility Consultants of Florida. I believe we've got one call line. Yes. All right, welcome, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm Jeff Baker. I'm the Manager of Government and Community Relations for Duke Energy. Obviously, Duke Energy we work in partnership and closely with Mr. Porter, who's with Utility Consultants of Florida. I'm here tonight requesting Mr. Riefler just to give you an update of the projects. Obviously, I'm going to break them down into south of the causeway, what we refer to as phase one, and then we'll talk a little bit about north of the causeway. South of the causeway, the good news is a lot of activity has taken place. I know you have all had some challenges and concerns from some of your constituents, but to give you an update of where the status is on that project, Mr. Porter's company has installed all of the conduit for that project, and we are now moving forward with doing the work that's necessary for Duke Energy to energize that. We have acquired a contract with a company called Pike Electrical. They will be doing the actual work for us, and we will be working to get the pre-construction meeting scheduled very shortly with them. Some of the delays that we have had during this, obviously some of it was storm related, some of it was equipment related, and also our project manager on this particular project has unexpectedly been out for an extended period of time. So that is what's happening with the South of the Causeway Phase 1 project. And I'll turn it over to Mark if Mark wants to add any additional comments.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. Is there any questions from council on the South of the Causeway project before I move to the discussing north?
Council, questions on phase one?
I think I do have a question. You said the conduit's in place and Duke's in the process of energizing, but we still need to run the wire off
Yes.
the cable.
Right, that's what we hired Pike Electric. They should be, and from an estimate of time, we're still talking a couple of months to get this completed, but yeah, they're gonna come in, we've got to set all the pad mounted equipment and things of that nature. So a couple of months out on that, as far as finalizing that, and I will certainly keep Mr. Riefler updated on that as we go along.
So your best guess would be 2 to 3 months?
Yes.
For completion, for energizing?
Yes.
Or, okay, thank you.
You have from First Street up to the causeway, you have some utility boxes that were covered up, but they got washed away when the rain came in.
Yes.
It's like a 2-foot, 3-foot drop. When will they be sealed up or be covered up?
And that I'll have to look into because I don't believe that's a part of the project, so I wasn't aware of those.
You'll see the rebar sticking out with the caps on it. The rain washed away the plywood.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the storm, we lost quite a bit of equipment out on the beaches. So, Mr. Riefler, do you have specific addresses on those, or can I get with you tomorrow to get specific addresses on those?
I'll get those for you.
Perfect, thank you. As far as what's north of the causeway, the phase 2, and then going up to 22nd, as I believe all of you are aware, easements has been the biggest challenge with that. And I understand that. It's one of those things where residents, when they own their homes and things of that nature, they don't want additional equipment placed in their yards. That's certainly understandable, but it does create a challenge to finish a project like this. At the request of the city, because ideally we always want our equipment to be in easement rather than right of way. Understanding that the right of way situation for Gulf Boulevard is such that the possibility of widening of that road is somewhat slim, but I mean it could happen. But also the county, I understand, does have a pretty wide right of way there as well. So it's one of those things where, I said, typically we do not put our equipment in right of way for easement. We have worked with our general counsel to understanding the situation and the likelihood that we would have to remove our equipment at some point in time. So we're willing to put it in the right of way. What we will do is we will put it as close to the, as far away from the road while it remains in the right of way. So that is something that we have been approved to do. So that will help us as far as getting the work done right along Gulf Boulevard. There will be still a need because there will be certain equipment that we will have to go through people's backyards to put in what we call turn holes, and that will be where the underground goes back up to feed some of the streets behind the neighborhoods. And so there, like I said, there still could be some easement challenges, but we're certainly the significant easement challenge that along Gulf Boulevard, we have resolved that. So we'll just come up with an agreement with the city that, should we have to relocate our equipment, that the city would be responsible for those costs, and we'll work with the city manager to get that executed. So that's where we stand now on phase 2. And then, Mark, is there anything else that I should mention as far as phase 2?
The only thing that I would add is in the unique situations where some of those laterals that run behind the properties, if the residents decide not to grant an easement for that, there would be some smaller but interim poles that would have to do that to continue that feed. So that's the alternative in those scenarios where we're unable to get the easements for those little back alley sections.
Any questions from council on that?
Yes.
Can you distinguish easement versus right-of-way as far as space distances? What does that mean?
Well, easement is when we're getting it, from private property owners. The right-of-way varies, throughout cities and counties as far as, but I believe, and Mark, do you know offhand, I want to say the easement on Gulf Boulevard, it exceeds 20 feet, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's right at about approximately, there's, like you said, there's some variations, but approximately it's about 31 to 35 feet from the edge of the curb.
Right-of-way or the easement?
The right-of-way.
The county right-of-way. Right.
And see, and that's why, and that, in and of itself creates, a challenge for the residents. Again, stop and think about how, that is a much larger right-of-way than most right-of-ways. Most are in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 feet. So if you've got a 30-foot right-of-way from the edge of the road going back, if we were to go in the easement like we typically do, literally that piece of equipment could be in the middle of the yard or very close to the house, because a lot of the homes don't have a 100-foot setback from road to their home. So the uniqueness of that, but that works to our favor in being able to work with you in partnering with using the right-of-way, because since there is such extensive right-of-way, our assumption would be, first off, that the likelihood of the road being widened is pretty slim anyway. But if it were to be widened, you still have enough to do a lane or whatever, and our equipment would still be out of the way of any new lanes or anything that would be built. So there is a much larger right-of-way along Gulf Boulevard than most typical streets.
Thank you. That was good clarification, because I just couldn't add up the numbers of easement versus right-of-way. So we're talking almost 50 feet back from the edge of the road if an easement was used.
Well, I'd say 30 to 35 feet max.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I had one for Mr. Porter. I was just noticing that the other guys, the telephone, I believe it was Verizon, and also, I don't think that I've actually seen Spectrum trucks, but I did notice they were moving something, and they were spending a lot of time around the conduit that's coming up out of the ground. Do we anticipate that they're going to be more on schedule and in line with what Duke is doing, or is it going to be similar to what we experienced the last time, to where who knew when they were going to show up and actually do the job?
No, that's a good question. So all their infrastructure that's needed for them in order for them to underground has already been installed by the contractor. We've asked them to go ahead and do their build out and wreck off their facilities so that when Duke's done, those poles can come out. So they should be far well in advance of Duke's operation for that. So that's good news. So we asked them about, I think towards the end of the year, and of course the storm kind of delayed, to go ahead and schedule that work. So we have noticed that they've started that. So I'll give Kyle an update as to what their completion date is.
Thank you very much. That's good news. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you expect to have the agreement ready for next
Yeah, I'll work to get that accomplished.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Gentlemen, I appreciate you being here tonight, giving us updates. It's always nice to see the transparency. This is good.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the lesson on emotional support animals. Take care.
All right, we are up to item number 6, which is the quarterly board reports. I'm seeing that there is no report for the Board of Adjustments and no report for Parks and Rec. We have a written report in the Audit Committee. Is anyone here to speak?
No, they are not available to meet this evening, but they did provide their update. They did meet to discuss the draft audit and approve that for council.
Okay, great, thank you. And planning and zoning, is anyone here?
No. They have been meeting every month to review the code changes that were suggested, and they'll have something to come before council later this year.
Okay. Whenever you speak to them, let them all know how disappointed I am. They know what you do. All right, we are on to item 7, which is the city attorney's report. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, council. By way of update, you should be receiving, though they are lengthy, legislative updates. We try to, as a firm, provide those to our clients with regularity and reviewing and revising the current update to get it out to you, hopefully by tomorrow morning at the latest. But we want to make sure you're understanding and engaged with the legislative session and understand that there's a great deal being proposed. For example, the sovereign immunity caps. I was reading today that there's a proposal to, the legislative proposal in its original form as filed was to increase your maximum liability from $200,000 to $1 million. There's talk of an amendment to bring that down to $500,000, and then it would surge up in 2030 up to like $700,000 or so. Those kinds of bills have real meaningful impact on you as it relates to the premiums you collect from your, with your carrier or your carrier collects. And otherwise, there's a lot going on in this session, a lot in the form of preemption or indirect preemption in the form of attorney's fees provisions and things like that make it much more difficult on the compliance side for especially smaller jurisdictions like yours to operate. But we want to make sure that you're aware of that. We disclose that to you. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions you have, and just thank you again for the opportunity to continue to serve your community.
Council, any questions for the city attorney?
Just busy doing it, sorry. This is alarming when I read through what's on this list. And I guess my question is how is the city best represented in going with this? Is this Big C? Is this something the city does individually? What's the best way to go about this? It literally is very alarming on what control they're taking from the city and putting it as.
Yeah, so it's important just, because we're all in different years of experience in our service here, understanding that in your system of government in Florida, you have what we call home rule powers, and that goes back to the Florida's 1968 Constitution, which says unless the legislature regulates or decides that it is solely responsible for something, you can do what you want. Which is why Florida is that funky fun state that we all love and adore, because New Smyrna doesn't look like Key West, doesn't look like Naples, and everybody gets to do their own thing. The more preemption you get, and preemption is the word we use for the elimination of home rule powers, the more preemption you get, the more uniform things become, and the less you have that character, and the less you have the ability to make your community different from any of the other beach communities in Pinellas or the state. What you held up, I didn't draft. It is a Cliff Notes version, I'm told, of what we have been drafting. It is alarming. To answer your question, how are you best represented? I would say the Florida League of Cities is really your best bet in terms of efficiencies, costs, and means. While you could certainly, whether in this budget or any other time, talk about retaining lobbyists and things, I don't know that one more person paid tens of thousands of dollars is really moving the needle in a legislature where the House, the Senate, and the executive are all the same party and seem to have these aligned priorities for the most part. So I don't know that that's the best use of your resources. That's a personal call you guys make as policymakers. But the League of Cities, and to the lesser extent, of course, the Big C and its efforts, anytime you can collect your influence, the better off you'll be. One letter from Bel Air Beach versus here's a dozen letters from all of Pinellas beaches, whether it's to your congresspeople or to your state, obviously a different impact. That said, getting your citizenry engaged, The League of Cities has the Local Voices United campaign. You go right to their website, it's right there. And they have a lot of ways to get legislative updates, get engaged, use some of their form templates to say, hey, I object to this, and get those in the record. But as with anything in the democratic process, the collective will is much more influential than the solitary will.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? What I have noticed, because I did go up a couple of weeks ago, and I addressed a Senate committee against one of the bills listed, actually two of the bills listed in this handout. I get the impression that if it's made it to committee, they've already figured out that they're going to get a yes vote on a certain bill. So going in front of them and saying, no, you need to turn this off and vote no on it right now is not what they want to hear. But what they may be willing to listen to is, here's a way to make the bill better. And I think that's kind of where we are now, that you have to approach them softly rather than with a big stick, because they don't listen to the big stick. They've already got it figured out, and they realize that their stick is bigger than yours is. It's very disheartening that you walk in there and you have a very good argument, make a perfect case for why a bill should not pass, and they vote yes anyway. And then they say, we're going to vote yes on this, and then we're going to, we'll try to clean it up whenever it goes to the next committee. And so that's kind of how it works. But the problem is you spoke at that committee, the next committee is not going to hear your message. And so really you have to spend some time. If it's a bill that's really near and dear to your heart, or you really, really just hate it, you have to invest a lot of time up in Tallahassee to get your point across. And unfortunately, I don't think that they're very cohesive to just a mayor. I think it takes a village to approach them. But I also noticed that whenever we have citizens address the council, we give them 3 minutes. Well, I was given 3 minutes at the first opportunity to speak. The second opportunity to speak, they said you have 30 seconds. Well, you can't get your point across in 30 seconds. So it was a very good learning experience. And I think whenever I go next time, I'll be better prepared. I think, unfortunately, this is the season that they're going after zoning and they're going after funding, and they're trying to make it very easy for developers, which is it may not impact Bel Air Beach too much, but if they get their toe wet, just got to dip it in the pool, and the next thing you know, well, we got away with that one. Let's see what else we can do. A good example, I don't know if everyone read these, but that one bill, we don't have a church in Bel Air Beach. What do you think? That doesn't impact us at all. However, if the fire hall had not already secured that, let's say the bill goes through, the fire hall does not secure that, and the church, whoever owns the property, says, well, I'm going to sell this for as much as I can. That bill says you can put anything you want on that property. And that's right next door to Bel Air Beach. So you've got this big, God only knows what it would be whenever they're finished, but municipal codes out the window, and developers win. So I guess that's enough about that, but I just wanted to kind of share that experience with you. All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Harper.
I guess and this might not be for the agenda, but my big question is why? Why does the state want to exert this control and eliminate the home rule structures?
That's a much longer discussion for another day, but I would say in short what you're seeing is a focus on Florida as an economic engine, and all form of government is perceived as an impediment to that economic engine, especially when you have a patchwork framework of regulation across the state, across 400 some odd cities and 67 counties. You say you come, let's say you're operating some kind of startup, whether it be Airbnb or Uber or whatever, you come in and say, hey, I want to do business in your state, but it's so impossible to do this. There's 460 different kind of regulations I have to deal with. You start getting near legislators, I want to invest, but I can't because it's so hard. That kind of discourse leads to those kind of full-scale changes. You add the growth in Florida's population, and you say, oh, we need housing, we need this, we need that. Well, the codes often that have preserved those small town fields, it becomes an impediment to getting, you guys can't have a multi-use, large, Pulte homes, I'm not calling out Pulte, but just as an example, large developing structure like that. And so they say, okay, what can we do to supersede those codes to make it possible for those things to happen? And so it's sort of a reactionary approach to that kind of philosophical directive, if that helps.
Yes, thank you. It basically clears the way for developers to just go right through. Yes, go ahead.
This whole section is the housing land use section is a big problem, but there is an area that could clearly affect Bel Air Beach, and that is the SB 184, where allows like some accessory dwelling units to be added without any additional parking. So does that mean we're doing like City of Largo does, where they're allowing the in-law suite to be built onto the back of the houses without additional parking spaces, and we would fall under that? So just some things to keep an eye on.
Well, our saving grace may be that you still fall under building code. So you have to be able to build that structure.
There's some lots though that have.
There's a
That's
few,
some,
for sure.
yeah. I'm not gonna say double lots, but lots and a half that would allow that kind of use. There's quite a few of them in the city.
And you're not required to do anything to your parking situation. Yeah. It's definitely not good. Yes, Mr. Baker.
HB 943. If you establish your home as a religious meeting place, does that fit into HB 943?
Those typically have institutional zoning. So it takes for an act of God, no pun intended, to get that converted to multifamily use. So this allows, because there's a lot of big tracts of land in the county that are institutional use, and it's hard to get that changed.
I come from Pennsylvania, and the Amish have meetings, or prayer meetings, and religious on Sundays and every month, so their taxes got and everything like that. And I was wondering if this opens the door for, I'm going to pick on the Amish, even though I have,
It's a question worth asking, council member. I can't say that I've fully analyzed that. And also I want to look at how does that interplay with, obviously, religion is not a commercial enterprise by itself, but home-based businesses and other preemptions that once you overlay them become an issue. Because, for example, one of the bills proposed this session that hasn't really gotten any traction was one about trees. And if a tree is on a residential property and it falls on the neighbor's property, it used to be that sort of a no-fault situation. And now they're trying to say, well, or there was a proposed bill that would change that. But that bill did not take into account at all the city rules on when you bring trees down for, if it's dead or diseased and the need for an arborist report. So it was like, well, in a vacuum, that's a decent idea, but how does that interact with this other statute? And so I think it's a meritorious question. I'd have to look at it more closely. That's not something we've specifically analyzed for.
Any other questions or comments? I would just like to say that Randy has served us well. That this may or may not be his last meeting. He's not giving me a definitive answer, but I would just like to personally thank him for helping us out and doing what he thought was best for our community and guiding us whenever we may have been steering in the wrong direction. Let's just put it that way. So you'll be missed, but I'm going to find ways to make you come back. And I'm also going to tell you that don't take this personal, Mr. Trask, but I've learned from Randy that you don't brag on your attorney too much because he'll leave. So thanks a lot, Mr. Mora.
I appreciate the kind words, Mayor.
All right, let's move on to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll start off with the hurricane recovery. We're at 43 properties now that has a substantial damage status. I still expect that to go down some. As far as demolitions, we have, I think we're at 12, and I've seen some more signs on, so I do expect a couple more demolitions permits to be coming in. As of, I have the wrong date here, but April 11th, but it really is tomorrow, April 9th. That is going to be the last day that we get the state supported aid from some of these contracted companies that are doing our appraisal reviews and our construction cost reviews. So after our deadline expires, then we're going to be taking it back in-house, and I'll be using pretty much everything I've learned from going through this process the last 5 months to finish it out. I do expect with some of these permits and Elevate Florida applications that we are going to have this going well into the next hurricane season, as far as if a structure has to wait to be demolished and get approved to build up or elevate. And then we have started, we have a date now for 19th Street, and we talked about installing the sod using volunteers. Right now, unofficially, I heard we have 17. I have 13 names officially, but we're hoping to get close to 20. And I think we have 20 volunteers. It's going to be about an hour for what we need to put down. So it's looking good, even though it's Easter weekend, but we still have a pretty good turnout. So we're looking forward to see how that goes. Hopefully recruit more volunteers for the other accesses and maybe some volunteers for boards. We'll see what we can do. We heard from Duke Energy tonight. It's good to hear that phase 2, they got a plan. My concern is it kept getting delayed, so I'm hoping that this is so cable get pulled through the conduit on phase 1, either this month or the next. And then, like Jeff Baker did say, he expects to have the agreement that we'll look at the next meeting to finish the planning for the equipment on phase 2. The stormwater project, they've installed all the CIP cure-in-place lining, so all the pipe repairs have been made. The valves are still removed on those pipes, and my goal is to get out and inspect each one of those outfalls before we put the valves back in. And that really is what is left, besides some inlet modifications on the project. I have Gemini Engineering, and I'd like to share my screen. I don't know if anyone has seen where Bayshore connects with Morgan Drive, but the curb's sunken in. It's been like this for, let's see, 5 years now. And we started drilling holes into the curb as a solution to trying to get water to drain out the sunken area. And it was working. We had another house get developed on a vacant lot right in front of it, and I just believe over time it's not working as well. So let me just show you a picture of kind of how bad it has gotten. Let me share that on that screen. Yes. So this is 2611, I believe, right? Morgan is to the right, and then your next street down is going to be 25th. But this is kind of how bad it's gotten. Previously, we had holes in the curb, and within an hour, a couple hours, the water would go down into the curb and it would disappear. But now we're getting puddling that's coming over into the roadway. This is later in the day after the irrigation when it was indicated that it rained. So it's a sunken curb that
it runs for a good, I don't know, 40, 50 feet. And I just had Gemini Engineering looking at it because it's gotten to the point where it's definitely become a serious, like a nuisance.
Is this a new curve?
So see what we can do. No, this is old curb. And as you can see, there's another picture, where it goes, from the other angle. Yes, there it goes. So on the right side is the larger puddle. There is some puddling on the, which would be the west side of Bay Shore, but it's not as bad. So I would like the engineer to look at the elevations and see if there's enough room that the curb can be modified to decrease how much puddling and whatnot.
If everyone's not seen this, at certain times of the day, after certain events, it could be sprinklers, it could be rain. That puddle is covering half of the road. It's almost to the crest of it. You have to drive around it.
So I'll report back to the council on what the engineer recommends for that. Let's see. Okay, so South Park seawall construction has begun. Expected to probably be completed in a couple of months. They did discover that where we ended the project and the Indian Rocks Beach resident to the south, they recently redid their seawall, but they did not take it all the way to our property line. So there is a space of about 2 feet that exists on the jurisdictional line from his seawall to where our line is. So we've been communicating with Indian Rocks Beach, and as of now, it sounds like they're willing to pay half of the price to close the gap. They really have to just look at the seawall. And Attorney Moore has been involved, but they did say they would consider a quick plan B to just give us that piece so that we can maintain it. Code review, our next P&Z meeting is going to be Wednesday, April 23rd at 10 a.m. And we have some review to go over with the additional language about amateur radio towers and antennas. So Attorney Moore is going to be explaining that, and then we're going to move on to Chapter 30, which covers marine structures, activities, and facilities. And as of now, I am planning to schedule the work session for April the 21st, which is Monday. That's the third Monday. It's our typical work session day. I know that could change in the future, but I believe this month it still works for our schedule if it works for the council. Yes.
I'm out of town then.
Okay. Is there a better day?
I'm actually out from, just to make sure, looks like I am out from the 17th through the 27th.
Possibly.
You know, I can always, possibly remote.
Yeah. Let's start with forum. Does it work for the rest of the council?
For me, works for me.
21st.
I'll be out of town, but I can remote in.
Okay. So we should have it. Okay. So we'll have 21st work session.
Okay.
And then the banner, I sent the proof of that. That's on order, and we will get that on as soon as we receive. The palm tree was brought up. That was Friday night, and we're still waiting for the full police report. It sounded good that there could be some insurance coverage. Then the tree was removed today, if you haven't noticed. So we got that cleared out, and we'll look into the replacement. I don't know if you remember, it was about 4 or 5 years ago that one marina was struck. We had to put a slightly smaller tree in because it's a pretty large tree. Morgan Park, so we're back. Good news is that people are using it again. And we're getting a lot of traffic and getting trash filled up, so we're going to go back to mixing in some weekend scheduling so we can get that trash cleaned up on the weekends. But I'm happy to say that at least we're getting the volume in the park. We're going to move back. That's all I got.
And it's pretty amazing. They can fill all those cans that way.
It is a nice job, though, keep it working.
Yeah, definitely. Any questions for the city manager? Let's start with Mr. Weller.
Yeah, Kyle, any update on the valve, check valve on 7th Street?
Yes, I had that camera last week. I have a video that I've sent to John and I. They're going to look at it and tell me what they think.
High tide last week, that water level was pressed on 7th Street. We're out of the sewer. Talking about 23rd Street.
Yeah, it's like,
We're
your whole street's flooded.
Yeah, we're thinking, the three of us are thinking about doing
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so they're going to look at that and then they're going to give me a recommendation on how we can fix that.
We might be able to do that, but that be something we might be able to have for the 21st meeting.
They should have an answer for that.
Yes.
A question relating to the 75th anniversary celebration. I had a young citizen observe that he didn't believe we had a city flag. And the question is, do we have a city flag? And is this an opportunity to correct one?
Do you not know of any kind of symbol or logo outside of our seal? I guess it would be seal on the flag. It's not the charter. We have the seal.
the flag.
No flag.
You had a question, Mr. Baker?
Honors high. You got to it. Judy?
Oh, yeah. So Kyle, you said there are 43 properties that are determined substantially damaged and 12 demoed, or the 12 outside of the 43?
12, including.
12
About,
are inside the 43.
more so are substantially damaged, but not all of them that are definitely.
So we've had some additional demos.
I have people that are just, they're not substantially damaged, but they're tired of having to deal with that.
You know how many of those there are? Just curious.
Offhand, I would say 4, but I didn't find out our files.
Or
Four not substantially damaged structures that have chosen to demolition.
And then, just an observation, I was showing the property next to the boat ramp. And the boat ramp had a couple of sizable 2x4s in it that were, I couldn't pull out. I tried. So, yeah.
They should have cleaned that today with the CV.
Okay, yeah, just to kind of drive by it once in a while. Yeah, because it's a good place for it to wash up, and if we get more trash in the waterway, it's probably a good idea.
Councilmember Harper, would you have one?
I just had a question on Bay Shore. The idea is that we are talking about replacing that section of curb, but is that road not scheduled to have the new curbing and the new paving done like the rest of the streets?
It would be on the list next. I just wanted to kind of weigh out our options, like see what we can do with this one.
Got it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
The South Park seawall, so you had mentioned that that's adjacent to Indian Rocks Beach.
Yes.
Right there. The property owner that we're working with, I'm just curious, is that the same property owner who came in, I don't know, a few months ago regarding the easement for his dock?
Yes.
Okay. And so what's the agreement we made with them on that? Then they're going to pay for half of the additional?
Well, so he had a survey, and we believe that the land next to his property between Bel Air Beach and his property is the right of way for 20th Avenue. So it's actually, Indian Rocks Beach right away. So it's like common property, and he decided that he was going to stop his. I think it had to do with the way the fence lined up on the property line, and he stopped short. But when looking at it, I mean, we can't go over unless we get permission.
Sure.
Off our property. So they're willing to give us that permission and cover out the cost and then figure out in the future giving us ownership so we can maintain it.
Good. All right.
Everybody satisfied with your questions and answers?
Sir.
All right. In that case, thank you, Mr. Prefer. And now we will move on to item 9, which is the city clerk report. How's it going, Renee?
It's going well. I provided a written report in the packet. I have nothing further to report.
Any questions or comments on this well-written and prepared report? No? All right, I guess you're off the hook tonight. All right, now we are on to the consent agenda, items 10 through 13. This is for approval of the March 3rd, 2025 City Council meeting minutes, the March 19th, 2025 City Council work session minutes, acceptance of the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, as recommended by the Audit Committee on March 20th, 2025, and acceptance of the January 2025 Pinellas County Multi-Jurisdictional Program for Public Information. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve consent agenda as written and proposed.
All right, a motion made by Frank Baker. Do I have a second? Second. Is that Harper? Yes. Second by Todd Harper. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda passes. All right, now we are on to the regular agenda. This is item number 14. This is for consideration of the interlocal agreement for storm debris management site, Lot 14, utilization at the City of Largo. Mr. Riefler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So this agreement, Largo gave it to us last week. They drafted it after this storm season, and we had 3 separate municipalities use their Lot 14, which is also the highest RC flying club area. It worked out very well for us, and we were very thankful to have the area to use as our DMS site, because we have no site that we can use for ourselves. And they drafted this agreement so that in the future we can have something in writing for this purpose. And Attorney Moore has reviewed it, and he had some recommendations that they would agree with, and we will provide a copy.
I'd actually like to add as context, we reviewed this, and as a testament to some of the efficiencies that our firm can provide you, Attorney Trask had reviewed this interlocal agreement for the City of Madeira Beach. I shared it with him, and he did review it and provide comments for your purposes. We're going to give that same efficiency to our communities, including New Rocks Beach and Bel Air, I believe, or one of the bluffs is on this agreement as well. And so, just by way of insight, one, in terms of efficiencies, but also two, to give credit where credit's due. The review and comments that you received were from Tom's review of the document.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Riefler. Before we bring this to the council, would any citizen like to comment on this interlocal agreement? I see none. Citizen comments are now closed. Council, I'm going to need a motion to approve this interlocal agreement.
So moved.
Who is that?
Jody.
Judy. Motion is made by Councilmember Shirley. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Baker. Jody, you have the floor.
After, reviewing this, and I know several guys that have lay down yards and debris fields, and this is a godsend. He's told me everyone were full and not accepting debris, so good job, kind of keeping it secure.
Any other comments?
Yes, I believe there was an issue during the storm that the debris facility was closed and locked at times when there were trucks there and ready to unload, and so there were a lot of delays. Does this agreement, and I apologize, I haven't read it in detail, but does this agreement address the access and make sure that it's 24-hour access in the event of catastrophe?
It's not going to be 24 hours. They're still going to be control of how the site operates, and we're going to work around it. I did not ask for 24-hour access. It was an issue, but it was their discretion when we were using it. So
And as added context there, Councilmember, one of the issues that came up in response to the storm is while we're filling the trucks, ordinarily there's not overnight operations for various safety reasons dealing with post-storm conditions. And so that was a little different this time because the Florida Department of Emergency Management dictated to all cities, you need to be going 24/7 for 90, 120 days, whatever it was. And And so that created this like, oh, well, now the trucks are stacking up, and where ordinarily we might not have seen that in that same way. So that was sort of unique to this last go-around, if you will. As Manager Riefler indicated, it wasn't requested, but just as context, ordinarily you don't see 24/7 operation following the storm for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is just the perilous of the scene.
Does it make sense then to have a provision that deals with reasonable access during normal business operating hours, or as by the state, something that gives that flexibility? Because that was a real problem in terms of the back out.
Well, it did cause a problem, but we did find a solution once we started taking it directly to the recycling center. So we worked with with FEMA and just kind of get our boxes checked to make sure we could do it that way without using the DMS site. So we did work around it. Just thankful that Largo is providing the site to us now. And moving forward, I know the county and the municipalities are getting together to try to work through these debris, problems that we faced this past storm season. Kind of what happened with the landfill, how they opened it up and then it got way back up, and try to figure out a better solution for all of it, for the regional debris maintenance.
Was FEMA a big problem with a lot of this? Because your town, Dunedin, they got involved with Milton when the trees were falling down. They wanted to change the custody of each tree, how it was chopped up and where it was disposed of. And
they can get pretty.
Yeah, I think the executive firm will speak up. It's going to wash a lot of that away, but I thought FEMA agrees. Flying you away in some of these.
I wouldn't say that they caused an issue. It just, we had a plan. We had all these contracts that that the county formulated and bid out, and then we all piggybacked them. And we had a good plan set up, but we did have quite the season and tested that plan, and I think we need to work through find more solutions.
Can I just add that 24-hour access would be very difficult because you drive through a residential area to get to this laydown yard. So it would be inappropriate for us to ask for such, under the eyes of us getting clear in our law. You don't want to mess up
And
someone
the people that
else's.
would remain here, they want front end motors going down the street at 2 o'clock.
Exactly, that's my point, yeah.
I think if it's in the middle of a disaster and that we're trying to preserve people's property, yeah, I think we welcome that. Do what you need to do to protect our property.
There was another problem that cropped up, which was we were required to separate what was collected and put it in different piles, and it actually had to be counted somehow or another. There had to be an audit that was done, and that means if you're allowing 24/7, then you have to have someone staffing at 24/7 to keep up with everything that's coming in. So it's definitely a difficult job. It seems like you've got the property, but finding manpower in the middle of a crisis that's the biggest hurdle more than anything else. And I think that's why there was so many issues to begin with, is that there just wasn't the manpower. This entire area was completely overwhelmed, but we've definitely learned from what happened, and I think that this is actually going to help out a lot, because we didn't exactly have anything like this in place.
We did not have anything. It was just on the fly.
We were trying to figure out where to take it, so now we've got a dedicated place, and we also have to remember that the homeowner is required to do some extensive, for their insurance, possibly for FEMA. You can't just immediately haul it off. It takes some time. But
In a regular situation, we wouldn't have had the storm right up on top of it, so it would have been.
That's right. This is, under normal disaster conditions, so to speak, it's one and done, and you deal with it as you can. We were in very unusual circumstances with the second storm coming. So I asking whether we can have this flexible enough to deal with that kind of contingency.
Bring that up, because I know there's going to be further discussion and after action reports. So maybe there's something more we could add down the line. You have a base agreement and then have that in mind.
And also, since you said you haven't really read the agreement yet, it's actually for 4 or 5 municipalities on that one lot, and they all have dedicated places where they're allowed to put the refuge. So
Exhibit A marks.
yes. So that's about. There you go. She's got it. Comments? Any others? All right. Well, let's just do this with a quick voice vote because it looks pretty obvious that we know where we're going. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Mr. Riefler, you are authorized to proceed. All right. We are on to item number 15. Consideration of billing option for city attorney contract renewals. Or renewal. As you recall, you were asked to pick your option 1, straight hourly billing, or option 2, a cap retainer. Mr. Trask, thank you for being here tonight. Would you like to step up to the podium and formally introduce yourself to the council?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Trask. I'm the senior partner of the law firm Trask Daniel. Some of you have met before. A little bit of background on me, just so that you have that before we actually get to the numbers thing. I've been with the law firm that is presently named Trask Daniel for 37 years. Randy, of course, is my partner. I've been doing local government work for about 35 years. I'm currently the city attorney for the cities of Oldsmar, Madeira Beach, and Bel Air Bluffs. Been Oldsmar's attorney for 29 years. For Bel Air Bluffs, about 20 years, and about 10 years for Madeira Beach on 3 separate terms. My practice is only local government law representation. I feel that I'm pretty good at it. I like doing it, and I look forward to working for the 7 of you, as well as the city manager and city clerk. Just as an aside, I actually represented the city of Bel Air Beach back in the late 80s, early 90s on a number of occasions when my partner John Hubbard was the city attorney. I filled in quite a few times. Obviously, it was not in this building. It was in that rotunda round thing, and it was not like this with all the computers and the TVs and so forth. In fact, I remember that my wife was pregnant with my firstborn, and we had to keep the door open in the back so that we could listen for the telephone call if in fact she was heading to the hospital. I have fond memories of Bel Air Beach. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about me or the law firm. I'm sure that Randy has given you some background on the law firm. I remember when he was interviewing here, and I think that was pretty thorough, but I know there are some new members of the council. So, any questions of me?
I'll tell you what, before we open up the floor to the council, I'm just going to ask if there's any citizens that would like to comment on tonight's topic. And so we're at citizen comments. Would anyone like to speak? All right. Seeing as we have none, now I can bring it back to the council. But let's go ahead and get a motion to select a contract option, and then we'll have some questions and answers with Mr. Trask. Motion made by Frank Baker. Do we have a second?
Second.
What time I'm sorry, what is the motion on the
The
floor?
motion is to select a contract option, the 142.
Okay, so just a motion to discuss the contract
Yes,
item,
yes.
not one way or the
Yes,
other.
and I'm going to give the second to Lloyd Roberts, Vice Mayor Roberts. Mr. Baker, you have the floor, therefore you have the first question.
Yeah, I know after the work session, you told us all you know to think about which is the best option. I'm going to ask the city manager who you prefer, because, again, I don't want to tie your hands. I actually think, as Randy explained earlier, the retainer, I think we beat you guys a little bit more than you beat us. So, but I want to make sure our city manager has a free hand to pick it up the phone and say, worry about the hours. So what option do you prefer?
Well, we talked about at the last meeting, we could just go by the hourly,
Option two?
it'll be option one. Option one, and I mean, where I'm at, when we discussed it, it was a small savings if we stayed under that cap, but it'll just be hourly rate. If needed, if we needed more time, then we would use it. We make adjustments, we will.
That's
That's all.
Council? Yes.
I agree. I was going to ask the same question. I mean, the city manager, of course, is in charge of the budget. So he's the one that's going to be closest to that. I'd hate for him to be in a situation where he's thinking that he would like to call the city attorney, but maybe be reluctant because he felt like he was pushing the hours or something like that. So whichever one of those options makes him feel most comfortable, I'm good with that.
Do you mind if I call on Mr. Trask to respond to your concerns?
Sure. Go ahead.
If you'd like to respond to which I think right now the council is probably leaning towards option one, but you obviously, I'm sure you have municipalities doing it one way or the other.
I'm the only one in the firm that has a municipality that uses option two. Option two would be what Madeira Beach uses presently with the retainer, the cap number of hours. I think it really works well for them. There's a little bit more savings for them because of the retainer. It's a lot larger. I think it picks up 4 or 5 hours versus here I think it picks up 2, right around 2 hours. So it really all depends on how you want to use the firm. It doesn't really matter. I mean, as a lawyer, I prefer to get paid for, all my time and not discount any of it. It gives you some benefit to have the discount if you want to do it by retainer for a couple of hours during the month. My understanding is when Randy did the analysis, you have a retainer that you've used, it's about 16 hours a month. So you probably will not hit that cap of 18. So if you are running 19 or 20 hours a month, I would say it'd probably be smarter to do the retainer. But since you were about 16, it may not make financial sense because you're never going to take advantage of that 2-hour credit, basically.
And the other note, as you look at the historical use with reference to Councilmember Baker's statements, is that use was very heavy early on in the engagement as we were transitioning a manager, to a lesser degree transitioning the clerk at that time, but have since transitioned the clerk and had a substantial council turnover. So that as the charter officers have stabilized in their tenures, that has also seen a lot more efficiency. And as your manager, Kyle, has done a great job and continues to grow in his both confidence and understanding of the various things going on in a city. You've received a lot of efficiency that way, and bringing that with Tom's wealth of experience, I think you continue to see that kind of efficiency created in your use.
Other questions or comments?
Yes. Under the retainer option, are there any categories of hours that would not apply to the retainer?
I can answer that quickly for you, Tom. It's the same as your current agreement in that sense. So there are things that are outside of it. For example, if somebody makes a litigation claim against you, if something becomes a special matter, Examples of special matters you've had is the way you guys chose to approach the sign code, where we said, okay, let's get some more research. A lot of the interlocal agreement stuff with Bel Air Shore, as it relates to the easements and the beach accesses and all that stuff. That stuff, because it becomes a special project, you say, okay, this is going to end up taking 15 hours or something at a substantial amount of use. You say, okay, that's not really contemplated in a 16-hour monthly, 16 to 20-hour monthly service. So we say that's special matter. So while topically there are very clearly things outside of it, code enforcement, subordinate boards, those things are clearly outside of the retainer in your current agreement. As things become special projects, if hurricane response had involved more of a legal review, that's a very easy example of something that you don't anticipate, it comes up, and then your costs shift.
So, in looking at last year's total hours, does that include hours that were outside of the retainer?
No, the hours that I provided was specific to retainer scope work. There was work outside of the retainer billed hourly. I didn't go into that in terms of the analysis for providing you how your retainer was used.
Do we have an estimate of what that total went in?
Excuse me. Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Oh, sorry, I was speaking to the speaker. sorry.
The question asked was if I have a good number on the hours outside of the retainer used last year off the top of my head. I don't. It didn't come up in the last meeting, so I didn't make sure to prep that for tonight. So no, I don't have that number. Kyle maybe will provide some of that data, but I have it back in past years, not through the end of 2024.
I guess when I look at the option 1 and option 2 conversation, I see the retainer and I see the hours, but I also hear that we're on retainer and we're being billed hours too for special projects and other things. I tend to think the retainer is flushing extra money out the door, because what I heard Randy say earlier was that our services with the firm ebb and flow, some large, some small months. So I would option 1, the flexibility of giving us the coverage that we need based on the needs of the city.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right.
The only thing I would suggest is that if we are going to an hourly basis, and following up on Todd's point, is that we don't want to discourage anyone seeking legal advice when they need it. And so we should probably conduct some sort of regular review to make sure that we are spending what we should spend and getting the counsel when we need it.
Councilmember, to answer your question about outside the retainer work, based on a chart produced by your city manager and sent to me in September 2024, which would have basically closed out your fiscal year. During the first 13 months, you used a total of $43,000 outside of the retainer. By the second, 28,000, apologies, the 43 was the sum. 28,000. By the second set of 13 months in the contract to that point, you dropped down to 14,000, so cut it in half. The outside of the retainer matters were principally the work around the antenna tower, the sign code, foreclosure matters, and the solid waste agreement solicitation RFP process. Those were the largest sums for services outside of the retainer. There were a few miscellaneous other outside of the retainer things like going to a board, but those were the largest categories of use.
Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Carter.
So you'd mentioned Madeira Beach, right, but I think I know the answer. Are they pretty much similar to Bel Air Beach in that they're almost 100% residential, or do they have business as well?
They have a large area of business, John's Pass Village.
Oh, okay, that's true. Okay.
And they have commercial on Gulf Boulevard, as well as some on 150th. And there is obviously, I don't know how obvious it is. They're building a huge hotel and retail complex in the apex of 150th and Gulf in Madeira Way. So it's going to be even bigger, but mainly John's Pass Village is their commercial part.
And the reason I ask that question is I'd like to believe that since we're not like that we would be less likely to be involved in situations that would require legal counsel for lawsuits and things like that. That may be wrong, but that's my gut telling me that.
It's a firm belief.
Yeah, versus businesses out there may be more likely to create a scenario where we would need help.
I think some of your colleagues can attest to, you just never know where it's going to come from. That stuff just comes up. We're obviously equipped and prepared to handle it, but it's the whole issue with legal services is you never know when you're going to need it.
All right. Any other questions or comments? No? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here tonight. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mayor. You too.
All right, Renee, can we do a roll call vote? What we're doing is we're selecting option 1 or option 2.
Councilmember Bankert.
1.
Councilmember Harper.
1.
Councilmember Elliott.
1.
Councilmember Shirley.
1.
Councilmember Wellings.
1.
Vice Mayor Roberts.
Option 1.
And Mayor Gaddis.
Option 1. So it's unanimous. Option 1 wins. And
So we will prepare the contract to you, have it ready for you for the next official meeting, which will be the May meeting, notwithstanding any work session.
All right.
To the extent the manager suggested I was being a little cagey, I wanted to be deferential with the idea that you had a discussion item on it today. My goal would be for the May meeting, where that contract is approved, for Tom to principally handle that. If you have any April work sessions as we coordinate that date, it looks like we're going to have one. I would certainly plan to be there, so another reason why I wasn't sure if it was in the last meeting. My hope would be as you start a new contract with that May date, that then Tom would handle the contract from there. That said, while I do still have a work session, it has been a tremendous pleasure to serve this community, both learning and growing my own legal skills, learning with other communities, and then also partnering with you folks through a whole host of issues. It truly has been, you have a great team here. You should be very proud of the team you assembled for how lean and efficient you really are. And I appreciate the compliments and as he phrased it, bragging on me. But that the last part of that I wish to say is when I interviewed with this council, or a composition of this council some 3 years ago, one of the things we were very, very adamant about pitching, and even when we interviewed and didn't get it, is we have a team-based approach to representing our local governments. Just because I'm not your assigned city attorney doesn't mean I won't be helping, supporting, and certainly available to Tom in the transition and otherwise. The luxury of that is I'm down the hall or a text or a phone call away and ready to help. And while I might not be sitting in the chair, I'm very much invested in seeing you guys continue to succeed.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Now we are on to item 16, which is unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? I think, Mr. Reefer, you had something that you wanted to present in the last work session. It was about the Florida Doge. Did you want to address that?
Well, I just would like to announce that, we used the formatted recommended reply to the Doge letter provided in the Florida League of Cities, so we sent that letter out. So we did not qualify for any of the financial troubles that they wanted to know about.
For those of you unfamiliar, the Executive Office of the Governor issued an executive order, I guess by decree, establishing a department or division within it, or a function within it for its own Department of Governmental Efficiency, mirroring what we've seen at the federal government level. The way that's at least begun was directed towards financial stability, and they asked for, based on definitions in the Florida statute, communities to respond to say if they've met any of the criteria for financial distress in the last 5 years. Admittedly, I suspect that the letter was written by AI. It was not written very great because it opened with, if you have met these criteria in the last 5 years, please respond to this letter by date certain. If you do not respond by date certain, we will consider you in breach of the letter. And you're like, well, do I have to answer or not? But as a matter of prudence, most local governments responded to say yay or nay as to that, to ensure there was no misunderstanding. But to assert that the response was not itself a declaration of financial distress. And so, working with your manager, your city responded to that correspondence. But all the local governments were receiving that, or some version of that. Now we have yet to see the executive order requires monthly reports to the Office of the Governor on their efficiency efforts. given its unprecedented existence, I remain skeptical of how that can benefit us. I suspect in alignment with what we've seen in the legislature, it will present new challenges for your existence and operation, but we will, hopefully it's just to ensure that I teach a lot of ethics courses in the public offices of public trust, and the trust shall be sustained against abuse. Hopefully it's just targeted towards preserving the public trust.
Thanks for that update. Any other unfinished business? No. All right, well, let's move on to city council comments. We'll start this evening with Councilmember Welling.
Nothing other than go Gators.
Thank you. Councilmember Shirley.
Nothing further for me, thank you.
Councilmember Harper.
No comment.
Councilmember Elliott.
A variety of holidays are upon us. I wish everybody a very special day and however you choose to celebrate.
All right, Councilmember Baker.
Yes, I've been dealing with Governor Scott's office about FEMA and trying to get our roll back to zero, which we're all afraid we're going to lose points and everything like that. And one of the things they sent me on the 25th was FEMA raises floodplain requirements for federally funded projects reducing burden on American communities. And it was an executive order signed on the 20th by President Trump. FEMA finally got around on the 25th and put a lot of stuff in action, erasing a lot of the Biden-Obama restrictions. One of them is the substantial impact or substantial damages to these homes. So I don't know how this is all going to play out. I haven't read the whole crux of FEMA's rescinding of 206-25-005 concerns. But I contacted Elevated Florida today about this and said if this document will expedite Elevated Florida further. But that's the new agency too, so who knows what's going to happen there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baker. Next up is Vice Mayor Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to say as well that I really enjoy working with Randy. It was always pretty cool as well when we went to Florida League of City events, and oftentimes he was there presenting, and it was just comfortable and nice to see the man up there who was making the presentation is actually our city attorney. So you always did a wonderful job. And he made it very easy, I think, for all of us to work with him and to get to know him. I'm sure Tom very quickly will give us that same feeling, so I just want to thank him for that. I take offense to the earlier comment about the Go Gators. I'm an Auburn graduate, and the only good feeling that came out of watching the game with my daughter and son-in-law, who both were from the University of Florida, were my two grandsons who were 3 years old, who were running around cheering War Eagle. I got to them first. So, but they could pull us through, so congratulations to Florida.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion is made by Frank Baker. Do I have a second? Second by Kim Shaw Elliott. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I didn't think so. All right. Good night, everyone.